Being a politician was never part of my career goal. Early on, when in secondary school, I wanted to be a scientist. And then when I actually got into university, I focused on education and I liked the idea of being a teacher. So my focus of schooling and preparation was to be a teacher. And so the question of being a politician never really entered my mind until very much later in life. Well, there are many people that I admire and many people that have inspired me over the years. I mean, my earlier years, it would have been my teachers and coaches, the teachers that were the teachers I liked best. I remember my chemistry teacher in high school. I remember my high school track coach. And those certainly had a positive impression on me. In later years, just at the time when I was finishing university, I must say Malcolm X had a very strong impression on me, and people like Stokely Carmichael, both of whom were speaking out very forcefully about racism in America. I remember listening to Malcolm X for the first time at a university lecture that he gave back in the early 60s. And then there were other people like those that struggled for the liberation of countries in Africa, the Mozambique and South Africa, Steve Biko's, Mondlane, Machel, Mandela himself. These certainly had a very strong impression on me as an adult man. And then, of course, there were Dominicans that I met in the United States at the stage when I was had begun teaching. I had already got my master's degree, meeting people like Marlene Green and Athie Martin, Ruzi Douglas, Joey Peltier, all of whom were students, Donald Peters, Hilroy Thomas, all of whom were students in the United States at the time. Those inspired me a great deal to actually return back to Dominica, because here were Dominican students studying in America who themselves were committed to playing a role in developing our country. And having met them and worked with them and organized with them, it inspired me a great deal in terms of making the final decision to come home to Dominica. Well, the things that mean most to me is sincerity and naturalness. I don't like a pretender, a con man, somebody who fakes, who seems to be fake and aloof and sort of out of touch with the ordinary man and woman. So the qualities that impress me of a person when I first meet them are sincerity and honesty. And that means quite a bit to me, and I value that a great deal in my life. Well, as a little boy, 8, 9 years old, I remember our clock wasn't working at home. We had no clock, and I used to run from Cable and Wireless, where my grandfather lived, across to the old market to look at the time on the clock that was on the wall there and run back home barefoot in Roseau. I remember that. Dominicans don't know much about that. Just when I graduated from university in the United States, I was the New York State champion in the 400-meter hurdles. And that is in a state that has 30 million people. That was 1962. And then 2 years later, I became the champion of Nigeria, the Nigerian champion in 400-meter hurdles, and again 400 meters, and that was in 1964 in Nigeria. So talking to African friends I have, sometimes I put that one on them. Are they aware that I am the national champion of Nigeria for 1964 in the 400-meter hurdles? Mostly community work, working in La Plaine, working with SPAT, realizing that you needed to solve problems that somehow never seemed to be solved. I went first into village council in 1978 in La Plaine, got elected, and got elected subsequently for 5 consecutive terms. And it was work at the village level in organizing sports, in organizing culture, in organizing farmers, youth, that I realized that many of the problems that we have at the village level were not being solved. They were being left over and over undone. So it sort of propelled me in 1980 to compete and to take part in the national elections with the Dominica Liberation Movement Alliance. And I suppose that was my first active engagement in national politics. But from the beginning, almost day one that I returned to Dominica in 1974, I was engaged in the wider sense of politics. That is to say, working with the Movement for New Dominica, taking a stand on issues that were issues of the day. All of that, in a broader sense, is the politics of Dominica.